Wait for it. Hey, it didn't fucking crash this time! I am actually amazed. I'm gonna turn this down a little bit because of the fact that it's bursting in my ears and I'm gonna go deaf. But we are back inside of Lost Ascension and we have not played this in a while. I think literally the last time I played it was back, let's see here, July 2nd is where we left off. It is now August 15th. It has been a while since I played Lost Ascension. I do remember we're coming up on the festival soon, or like we're basically, this is the morning, and Yuri is just about to leave to go do the banner, I think, with Devin. And we are about to see what happens with the weekend. And then next episode is probably going to end up being the festival, or, unless, you know, unless the weekend's too short of a day, is what I'm going to say. I have no idea how long it's going to be, but hopefully it's not going to be like an hour long like these videos have been. I've been trying not to do hour-long episodes, mainly because of the fact that it just seems that, like, these kind of just... There's a lot of just unneeded stuff happening. Not to say that makes the mod any worse than it is, but, like, I'm sitting here for an hour just waiting for one day to be over, you know what I mean? Yuri! I pushed on Yuri's arm, trying to nudge her awake. Yuri, wake up! I spoke softly as I sat up straight, frowning. She didn't move, but I wanted her awake. Yuri! I stomped my foot once, and Yuri shook herself awake. She let out a very bizarre noise. It was almost a yell, but more adorable? I couldn't help but laugh. I am peeking, I'm sorry. I don't mean to peek. I don't know why it's saying I'm peeking. I couldn't help but laugh, Yuri looking at me with a bitter frown. What is it? Don't you know it's Sunday, Natsuki? Yuri relaxed back in the couch. I folded my arms. Yeah, it is Sunday. Better known as the day you have to spend with that jerk next door. She opened her eyes. She looked up. Did she already forget that she had to spend time with MC? That's amazing. Realization sinking in. I really want to call out. I shook my head. You can't. He chose you, remember? Obviously, he's hoping to get his whatever on with you. Yuri sighed as she looked up at the ceiling, smiling softly. Yesterday was wonderful, and even after we got home, it was still super relaxing. I smiled as I reminisced. We had dinner after the other two went upstairs. We did have dinner, didn't we? It was something I had come up with on the fly. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Yuri. It was homemade. She looked at me and smiled a little wider. I know, and that made it better. She sat up and stretched before getting up completely. She looked at the clock before nodding. You got me up an hour early? That was very considerate of you. I smirked as she passed by me, Yuri's movements confident and filled with purpose. Well, duh, we gotta make sure you're completely awake before you run off. Don't need you acting all, I don't know, funny with him. She looked at me and giggled. Why would I want to act funny with him? I thought the pasta was already wet. Huh? I don't understand that. Am I missing something? I felt my body tense up, my face becoming a dark red. I hate that you use that so dang much. I literally don't know what that means. Somebody please tell me what that means. She chuckled as she walked into the bathroom, turning on the faucet. Damn it, Yuri. I looked down at my feet, sighing softly. I don't even like her that way. I think. I looked back up at the doorway, my tongue... If you have to question yourself, then there might be a slight chance that you do feel that way. If you have to question it. I looked back up at the doorway, my tongue running across the back of the seat. You should know if you like somebody or not. You don't think about it and just assume you don't, you know what I mean? Not to say that if anybody thinks about it, who just magically does, but like if you're in this scenario, Natsuki obviously has the feels for her, and there's no need to think about it. I'm crazy to think that way, but I shrugged to myself as she came out, still dressed in her sweater and sweats. Oh, not gonna change? She shook her head and went towards the kitchen. I trotted along behind her. No, I'm supposed to dress casually, and I believe I'm also supposed to bring my jasmine oil. She then frowned and thought, I really don't want to waste it on the wrong person. I looked at her curiously. Wrong person? She looked at me and started to answer, only for her to freeze up. Well, I mean, jasmine oil is a relaxant. He doesn't deserve a break. I smirked. Then who does? She seemed to go into thought. Well, Sayori, obviously. She's gonna have a hard time today, too. That is true, because Sayori had to actually go home, and you know what? No, this is Sayori's home. I think basically I don't remember the plan, but I know Sayori has to be upstairs in her room, obviously for the whole depression thing to come loose. Again, this is the day that gets told. So I wonder if it really will go differently, like I predicted. I laughed. You're a terrible liar, Yuri. She frowned. I'm not lying, Natsuki. Sayori could really use a break. This has probably been the hardest week of her life. After I thought for a moment, I calmed myself down. Well, yeah, but she's a lot tougher than we will ever be. Yuri sighed softly. Okay. Natsuki, you got me. She went into the pantry, pulling out her tea kettle. I actually want to use the oil on you, so you fall for me, head over heels. She looked at me dead in the eye, my mouth trying to make words but fail. Did she just confess to Natsuki? Are you serious? She laughed at the comment, my heart dropping. No, in fact, I really don't know who to use it on. Oh my jeez. She's just up forth and personal about this. Holy crap. Good job. Good on Yuri. She's very open about her feelings. I felt my entire being crumble in that one moment. Why do I feel so hurt over this? It's just Yuri. That's understandable. I mean, it sounds like important stuff. I walked by her. She was watching me carefully as I dug through the pantry and pulled out some cereal. It is. She seemed to become quieter as I walked around. Is she getting more doubts about today? What's wrong, Yuri? I said it calmly as she played with her hair. I haven't seen her do that in forever. I watched her as I filled a bowl of the cereal, slowing my pace down. Well, I do have someone in mind at the shitty. Oh, did she not actually? Was she still talking about Sayori? Maybe she was, but Yuri's sort of kind of cracking. Like she's probably about to like say something along the lines of wanting to be with Natsuki. But it's just she hasn't quite gotten there yet. Well, I do have someone in mind like to share the oil with if she'd like to. I mean, if they'd like to. I swallowed once. Sayori, right? Hard week and stuff? She gently tugged at her own hair. No, I put the box into the pantry, my heart beginning to race. Then who? She looked up at me and smiled a little. Holy fuck! I'd want to share it with... Hey! Why did I know that something was gonna happen that just completely ruined the moment? Sayori, you ruined it. They were going to do it and everything, and you just fucking ruined it. Sayori, what do you have to say for yourself? I broke away from our staring to witness Sayori had come into the kitchen, a small but clearly tired smile on her face. Hey, Sayori! I glanced over at Yuri as I said that. She was gently playing with her hair again as she snuck glances at me. You two are quiet today. Did something happen? Oh, you would not believe it, Monica. Shit went down and you missed it. Monica popped in from around the corner, a concerned glance on her face. No, everything's fine, Monica. Thank you, though. Yuri had relaxed again. However, she seemed unable to look at me anymore. She was about to tell me something important. Just cereal today, huh? That's unlike you. Monica looked at my partially filled bowl. Yeah, I'm not too hungry this morning. Plus, we're gonna be here basically all day, so there's no reason to cook now. Monica nodded in agreement as she went behind me, searching through the cupboards. There are a small plate of fruits and veggies that I made yesterday for you in the fridge. And Sayori, there's a plate of leftovers somewhere in there as well if you want them. I smiled as they both dug into the fridge, feeling satisfied as I gasped. Works every time. Anyways, while we enjoy our late breakfast, we should review today. Monica sat down looking at the assortment of trimmed snacks, her eyes wide. I could use a refresher. Yesterday has left me a bit out of it. Yuri commented quietly as she finished her tea, the kettle letting out a quiet whistle as Yuri stood up. Yeah, plus I only really got to talk to Sayori last night, and having everyone here might help you both out. I looked up at Monica as she casually popped a grape in her mouth, the room gaining a quiet silence. Help us out with... Yuri asked quietly as she poured herself a cup of tea, moving the kettle to the table with a few extra cups. Well, just being prepared, considering today is the most... She gagged a little. Romantic day. I figured you two might want some pointers. Monica served herself tea rather quickly. She seemed a little less uptight all of a sudden. Well, I know you helped me yesterday, Monica. Sayori sat down next to me, her plate covered with what was left from Yuri and I's dinner yesterday. Yes, but it would probably be best for you to listen again. She took a generous sip of tea. Today is incredibly important. If we screw up today, all of our progress will be lost. She put the cup down, the silence returning. The feeling in the room, it isn't tense, it's readiness. I smirched as I leaned back, watching Monica as she looked at the two of them. Under no circumstances are you to break character, even if you want to. If he finds something wrong today, we will all be screwed. Yuri nodded. I'm assuming you tried something today in a previous playthrough? Monica nodded, a solemn frown on her face. Actually, it was the one prior to this one. She commented quietly, Sayori looking down at the table she shoveled in food. I broke out of the code and took Sayori away from him, preventing the conversation she's supposed to have. Monica inhaled deeply. I also prevented her suicide, but I later regretted it. She exhaled, Yuri nodding as she looked down at her tea, her finger running along the rim of her cup. I understand. It's because he reset it then. She shook her head. He didn't just reset it. He put us away for weeks. Monica looked up at her, Yuri's eyes widening. Do not mess this up, whatever you do, or else we will be screwed. She frowned. For a very long time, if not forever. Sayori laughed a little. At least we'll have each other, right? Even if we fail? Monica looked down at her fruits. Yeah, we will. In this dark void. All goes wrong, there probably won't even be them. That they won't exist. I don't know how it's gonna play out. I'm just making predictions here. I could sense the uncertainty in her voice. Are you sure? I spoke up quietly, Monica leaning up at me and going into thought. I would guarantee outside of the game, we would be able to, yes. But if we're stuck here when it shuts down... She raised a finger, her command prompt appearing. We're located in the character files, right? You cannot access that. Does she just not have access to the code anymore? We nodded that she pulled one of our files up effortlessly. She had Sayori's file present, but it's locked. Different? Wait, did it say locked? It did, but it looked. Oh, last time I said locked. Different. Monica said it aloud as we nodded again, watching her as she tried to open Sayori's file, but it was denied. He can't do it either. In fact, we can't even be deleted by outside forces. Sayori cocked her head. But then what happens if we're in the game and it shuts down? Monica's eyes glistened a little. Then basically all Codebreaker did was subjugate all of you to the same hell I was in. Yuri seemed taken aback by my own thoughts swarming. Are we actually locked out of deleting their character files? Like, is that what's, like, she just said that, like, no outside sources can delete their character files either. Does that mean if I went into the files right now, which I'm not going to because I'll crash the game if I try to click back into it, because that's what for some reason happens with beefy mods. But if I were to do that right now, would I actually be locked out of it? Would I actually not be able to? Yuri seemed taken. Okay, I already said that. So please do not mess today up, no matter what. Oh, the music stopped. She looked at the two of them again, her tone stern as she spoke. Do you understand? They nodded, the actual weight of the situation beginning to set in. We can do it. I know we can. Sayori said it cheerfully, a mouthful of food in her mouth. Oh, come on. Oh, Sayori, come on. My back is itching me, oh god. Monica groaned as Sayori smiled, Yuri and I laughing at the pair of them. Thank you for that, Sayori. I know we can do this. Yuri smiled as Sayori swallowed, the two of them sharing the moment. Of course, but we need to get sorted out. Yuri, you should probably head off. Yuri nodded, but she didn't seem very pleased to do so. Here, I'll come with you. You two can, Monica and Sayori nodded as they got back to breakfast. Their eating speed increased. Wait, Yuri! I scurried off after the aforementioned girl. She turned and smiled as I caught up to her. Is something wrong? Oil! Ask her! I just, come on, don't be an idiot! I just wanted to see you off, just make sure you're ready and all. So Yuri smiled, although if I wasn't reading into it too much, she looked somewhat disappointed. Oh, certainly, thank you. I'm sorry, Natsuki, you messed up. So she smiled a bit more as we made our way out of the house and across the street to a place she could hide out. You sure you got this, Yuri? She looked at me and smiled genuinely, my smile coming up without any resistance. I am more than certain that today will go well. I felt a bit of reassurance as I looked at her. Hey, good luck. Just ask her already! Thank you, and, also, you should probably get going, Natsuki. I glanced up at the house next to Sayori's, and the upstairs light flickered on. Oh crap, he's awake! Sorry! I shot up and rushed across the street. I went behind Sayori's house and waited patiently for the events of the day to begin. I hope everything goes well. And now it's Sayori's turn! Oh, that's right, MC goes to find Sayori. He's awake. I said it quietly as I looked out of the window at his house, my smile fading away. Is he? Okay, she did. I thought she was thinking that Monica was like reading her thoughts or something, but then I realized no, she actually said that. Monica sounded a bit surprised. She hurriedly dropped the rest of the dishes in the sink before grabbing my hand. Come on, we gotta head up to your room. I did my best to calm her down by squeezing her hand gently, yet made no initial success in that word or word expression? You don't need to rush. It won't take us long to get up there, you know. She seemed a bit taken aback, but she smiled. Right, best to slow down and take our time before one of us gets hurt. I nodded in response as we finished up our work and went up the stairs. We passed by the bathroom and paused in front of the door. Sayori. Monica whispered softly as she stood in there, hand on the door firmly. Don't let him get to you or anything else, okay? He's gonna sound, well, much more human today than he normally is. I laughed as she spoke, her eyes showing confusion. What's so funny? This is really serious. I hugged her, much to her surprise. She let out a quiet sigh. I know it is, Monica. I'm just trying to relax before it all goes down. Plus, if I seem worried, you might do something dumb. She backed down from any protest she might have had in that moment. Her word expression was unabated as we went inside, however. If he breaks character, don't be surprised. Don't show anything. Just continue your normal speech. She continued to blab on as I sat down, thinking over how to express myself for today. I guess I need to sound real, but how real? Are you listening? I nodded as she sat down next to me, her hands planted firmly in her lap. I don't think you are. You have that look on your face. This is also another reason as to why I think something different's gonna happen. Because Monica's literally, like, is basically telling Sayori that, hey, if he sounds real to you, don't believe it. I have a strange feeling that Sayori might believe it. I tilted my head. What look? I don't know what you're talking about. She tried to copy the look I had. It looked like a really confused and deep concentration. Oh, I'm so sorry. She smirked. Look who's totally ready now. We both laughed for the moment, the tension in the room obvious. Really though, Sayori, good luck. I really do believe in you. She gently patted my head, her smirk very obvious. Why the head pats? She stood up and went to my door before looking back at me. They helped me feel better when I was worried, so I figured they might help you out for today too. She looked away from me smiling. The memories of our first sleepover night came back to me full force. You got this, Sayori, I know you do. She exited the room, leaving me to think over everything. Eventually, I heard the sound of a male voice pick up from downstairs. Here goes nothing, I guess. This is gonna... Oh, hi! Hi, MC! How you doing? Sayori? He poked his head in the door, the most genuine look of concern on his face. Hi, Devin. I smiled nervously, my sour feeling coming back as soon as I saw him. Why do I feel so angry? He came over and sat down next to me, staring at me as I felt my nerves kicked in. I can't read for shit, I'm sorry today. This is uncomfortable. You haven't been over here like this in a long time. He nodded robotically. I guess you're right. This place hasn't changed very much. He smiled. He looked around and I joined him as he looked. My room was a bit more of an over-exaggerated mess. It's 'cause you never came over. He frowned. So I'm just your personal butler? Something clicked in my head. That isn't right at all. No, it's just that you always cleaned it for me, so... I trailed off. That wasn't the response I was expecting. Aren't you supposed to be meeting Yuri today? He seemed surprised. How did he know about that? I smiled a little as I looked away, my head a swirl of confusion. Monica told me. I mean, I'm her vice president and stuff. It's kind of my job to know, isn't it? He nodded in agreement as he leaned back, his lips parted slightly. Why is he acting so funny? Aren't you going to be helping Monica today? I shook my head. We're only going to be talking online. Through, you know, voice calls and stuff. I can't read, I'm sorry. He nodded. So, it's just going to be me and Yuri today. Yuri and I. Yep. I felt, oh, she's just correcting him in his, so like basically she's finding out every little different thing. I felt my worries for Yuri take over my sour feeling, my stomach churning. Talking funny, acting weird, and torturing us. Jerk. I just wanted to see how you were doing is all, Sayori. Since you left so early on Friday. I looked at him. I'm doing good. I was just tired on Friday was all. I looked down at my feet. It's no good, Devin. I trailed off, something else happening in my gut. It was beginning to feel overwhelming just to simply talk to him. Huh? He sounded like a brick, my anger swelling up again. I'm not supposed to feel this way. I'm supposed to feel happy. I'm supposed to feel happy. Aren't you supposed to make me happy? I looked at him. All that's happened now has been pain. This is my punishment, isn't it? For being so selfish and not talking, or for even attempting to connect with someone. He seemed baffled by my words as I continued my speech. The world just wants to torture me for everything I've done. That's why you're here, isn't it? Just to torture me. He grabbed my shoulders without warning, my body freezing up at his warm touch. Let me go! Sayori, do you hear what you're saying about yourself? I pushed him away from me, my frown taking over. Why did you trap me like this? Why? I looked away from him, his character appearing more distressed by a second. You just didn't see it until now. Oh, that's me saying that. Or that's Sayori saying that. He seemed confused. See what until now? Sayori, you're confusing me. I looked at him. Do I really have to spell it out for you? He looked dumbfounded. Monica was right. He does seem more human. But he seems even dumber than before, too. You see, Devin, I've had really bad depression my entire life. Even when we were kids. I trailed off. It only got worse as I got older, but it hit a new point when I brought you to the club. I swallowed once. I thought you being around would make me happier, make me feel less pain. I looked up at him, his eyes remaining both motionless and emotionless. Why does it have to be him? But I don't feel better. In fact, I feel worse. I felt my tears well up. Why eat? Why sleep? Why try? I felt my thoughts become jumbled as my emotions took over. Why do anything? He seemed stunned by my sudden outburst, tears beginning to stream down my face. Why did it have to be him? Why? He spoke softly. Why, Sayori? I felt confusion under everything else. Why me what? Why is it that you never told me about this? It almost feels like I've been betrayed as your close friend. Because if I knew, I would have done everything I could to support you. Even if there's only so much that I could do, I would have tried a little bit harder to make every day a little better for you. He ended off with his hopeful ending. My heart and head agreeing to something for the first time since I initially woke up. He really is a self-centered ass. This isn't even about me. He's freaking out because I never shared it with him. The guy who never visited, the guy who never cared. Even in the club I invited him to, but he just ignores me. My revelation continued to sink in. You don't get it. You don't. I looked at him, my tears clearing up. You being around, it hurts me. You knowing my feelings would simply hurt me more. I clenched my fist. It's bittersweet. Someone knows, but it doesn't help. It just hurts. I looked away from him, my heart wishing for someone else. It's why I wanted to be you to befriend everyone else. I didn't want to hurt myself anymore. He shook his head. You're right that I don't understand. I don't understand your feelings at all, Sayori. But I don't need to understand. Whatever it takes for me to help you stop hurting, that's what I'll do. I looked at him. He seemed serious, but I knew that was just someone else acting. There isn't anything you can do to change this. Nothing at all. It's just pain. I smiled finally. He seemed taken aback. You joining the club was supposed to help me, not destroy me. You were supposed to help me. I laughed as I wiped my face. You haven't. You haven't. He suddenly hugged me. My eyes widened, my mind whirling as he gripped me. Why? Why do you keep torturing me like this, Devin? Sayori, I don't care if you feel selfish. I'm really happy that you convinced me to join the club. Seeing you every day makes it worthwhile enough. If I make friends with everyone else, that's just a bonus. But please never underestimate how much I care about you. I wouldn't have it any other way. I let my arms hang limp, refusing to even hug him back. He's still just talking about himself. Why is he so... If you have it in yourself to call yourself selfish, then you have to let me be selfish too. No matter what it takes, I'll figure out what needs to change. I'll make these feelings go away. And if there's anything that you need me to do, then you better tell me. I'll get mad if you don't. I finally hugged him back, my silence filling the room. Sayori. He pulled away. He looked at me concerned as I looked away from him. I couldn't even bring myself to look him in the eye. Look, would you like to attend the festival with me? Just us two? Yeah, I guess so. No, absolutely not. He seemed relieved, even though my answer was barely spoken. Alright, I promise. Just us two, all day. I nodded solemnly as he stood up. Will you be alright? I kinda have to go. I nodded as he made his way out the door, stopping for a moment. It's kind of hard for me to fully understand, but I'm trying my hardest. I nodded again. He sighed as he left my room. I looked over at my closet, remembering how proudly I had thrown away my noose. Still not worth it. I felt my fresh tears begin to stream down my face as I heard my front door close. I felt my body shudder as my back door opened and closed. I shrunk down onto my bed, tightening myself up into a ball. Sayori? A quiet voice came from outside the door. It sounded like, Natsuki? I looked up at my door as it opened and saw Natsuki poking her head in the door. You alright? Monika's downstairs. I nodded. I'm alright, just a little shaken up, I guess. She seems worried. That bad, huh? Monika told me it would be a rough day, but you look like garbage. She crossed her arms. I know how to cheer you up. I looked at her confused. Come on, let's play that game you like so much. She held her hand out. I hesitated for a moment, but grabbed her hand, smiling a little. Then I stood up as she smirked at me. See, it isn't hard when you're feeling down. It still is. I smiled haphazardly, Natsuki still seeming worried. Enough goofing around. She walked out of my room as I looked back at my bed. He really was self-centered. I walked out of my room and closed the door, a thought crossing my mind. I'm gonna sit up a bit. I really should let go if it comes down it. I sighed. I guess that's English now? But I'll see you after tonight, Monika said twice for me. I frowned as I slowly made my way towards the steps, pausing again. This feeling in my stomach is getting worse. Gary's turn to deal with him. Him. I do hope Sayori's okay. I sighed quietly as I stood in front of his house, looking at his door and examining it. So plain. I put my hand on it, feeling the rougher edges of the wooden door. A bit dingy, too. I smiled to myself. The front door is representative of how dumb he is. I couldn't help but giggle. The voice in my head sounded like Natsuki. She'd like that one. I'll tell her later. I hummed to myself quietly as I looked over at Sayori's house. The quietness made everything seem desolate. Which it is. I leaned up on his door, letting out a quiet sigh of relief. The longer he takes, the better, even though it means Sayori has to suffer. I put my hand on my head until I heard a very unwelcome noise. Yuri? His voice pierced the air, causing me to stand up in attention. Ah, you're here. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. I smiled as he approached. You're here early. I felt a bit of panic rise in my chest. Was I supposed to be? No, I just got here. I did get a little worried when no one answered the door, though. He smiled sheepishly as he opened the door for me, the two of us entering. Huh? I felt a bit of confusion as I looked around. Why does this look familiar? It hit me. I had been there before. Hey, come on, let's head upstairs. I see you brought quite a bit of stuff with you. I realized my hands were empty, but he was looking out of the porch. Oh, dear me, I nearly forgot. Oh no. No! Yuri's fucking it up! Yuri, don't do it! I picked it up before we made our way upstairs to his room. You got everything, right? He nodded as we entered. I glanced around worriedly. This looks strangely clean. I put my stuff down on the floor, my curiosity piqued. I don't know. Is something wrong? I shook my head. No, not at all. It's just so clean. I said it softly as I looked around. Well, obviously, I wouldn't want someone to come over and think I'm a heathen. I smiled a little, trying to find comfort in his words somewhere. At least if he's a little funny, I can play this safe a bit. I walked over to his desk and went to open one of his drawers. I'm starting to get a bit of heartburn. Holy crap. Hey, wait! He suddenly grabbed my wrist, my hand clenching as I yanked it away from him, holding it close. No, not only had he grabbed me, he grabbed my... Oh, no. I'm sorry, please don't go in there, okay? Grab your what? Oh, you're... Okay, I understand. I nodded as I held my wrist close before sitting down across from him, rubbing it gently. Sorry, I wasn't really thinking. I just wanted to see what was inside was all. He shook his head. It's fine, it's fine. There was a moment of silence that I looked down at his floor. So, you want to get started? I looked up. Yes, of course. I pulled the bag over and emptied its contents out as he watched me intently. So, we're gonna spend today working on creating decorations and some atmospheric enhancements. I spoke calmly and clearly, hoping he would understand. Atmospheric enhancements. I sighed, annoyed with him. Like oil, candles, things like that. It's our room to enhance. He seemed a bit surprised. I didn't think you would take it that far. I laughed. Well, of course I would. I want everyone who comes by to check us out and feel an experience. To be taken away into a world that's not this one at all. I smiled as I spoke. I want them to feel it, not just hear it said, you know? He seemed lost even when I explained it to him. I forgot how intense you can be. I felt confusion at that. Intense? He laughed a little. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things I like about you, how intense you are. I chewed on my tongue a little. I think that's the best way to put it anyways. My train of thought didn't even have time to exist. Yes, that's a good way to put it. Plus, it makes me happy to know that it makes you happy. A page from Monica's book. It makes me feel relieved. He smiled smugly. Well, good. No reason to feel anxious. It's just me, after all. I felt a bit off-put by that remark, but I did my best to ignore it. Relax. I brought some things to help us relax. I swallowed once, not wanting to waste my precious oil for this. This idiot. Oh yeah? Like what? I laughed nervously. Let me show you. I went into my bag, digging through it and finding my candles and my special diffuser. I pulled them out and held them out to him. He curiously eyed over the foreign objects, slight intrigue lighting up on his otherwise blank face. I was gonna light the candles and use this diffuser during the festival to add to the room. He looked at the diffuser with the same odd expression. Diffuser? What is that used for? I smiled at as my knowledge came up. It's used to, well, diffuse essential oils for aromatherapy. I placed it down and looked at it sadly, knowing its precious liquid was about to be wasted. I don't really know how much about that stuff. I nodded. That's alright. Aromatherapy is good for establishing a positive atmosphere and creating a good emotional balance. A perfect mood setter. I smiled again, and I enjoyed being knowledgeable in things. Here, let me show you how it works. I pressed the button on the bottom of the diffuser, the precious liquid spraying up into the air. The character model smiled slightly, but that same hollowness remained in his expression. That smells wonderful. What is that? I sighed a little. It's jasmine essential oil. It smells flowery and sweet, right? He nodded as I got comfy, trying to ignore the slowly intoxicating smell taking over. Jasmine is good for many things besides being an excellent relaxant. It also serves as an enhancer for emotions and making them course with your body. Very specific emotions that I don't want to feel with you! That sounds really suitable for reading poetry, actually. That's very smart of you, Yuri. I smiled as he complimented me. Yes. I reached into my bag and pulled out several small spools of ribbon, placing them down gently. Ribbon? I looked up at him. Yes, did you purchase the original the origami paper I asked for? That's just where it ends? I've never felt so broken before. Sayori said it quietly as she sat there, curled up on the couch. Natsuki and I listening to her spill out how she felt. I knew it was going to be bad, but that sounds just plain rude. It seems like he never once thought about you. Natsuki said it as she crossed her arms. We fell in love with that jerk? How cruel do you have to be? I sighed a little as I put an arm around Sayori, pulling her in close. She didn't seem to mind, yet she didn't bother to return the hug. It's alright, you know full well that all this is scripted. That's the problem, Monica! She looked up at me, cutting off my consolation. She spoke loudly, with an unexpected passion that managed to catch me and even Natsuki off guard. Some meanie had to write what he said, didn't they? Someone had to make the choice to make him sound like a big fat jerk, and to me. God damn you, Dan. She put her head above between her knees, her entire frame being shaken as she curled into herself. Sayori, I didn't know what to say. She was right about it all, wasn't she? Someone had to write all of this at some point. It's fine, Sayori, we're almost done with him. Tomorrow we all get to take our shots at him. We get to ruin his day and ruin his life. Natsuki stood up and put her hands on her hips. Plus, once he's gone, we can do whatever the heck we want. Nobody will judge, especially not him. Sayori looked away, a shy smile creeping onto her face. All three of you have been so nice to me, it's hard to imagine what I would have done without you. She rested her chin on her knees. A quiet, somewhat tense silence fell between the three of us. Everything will be alright, I promise. I said it quietly as she pouted. I believe you, I do, but I can't shake this feeling I have in my tummy. I looked at her oddly. What feeling? She looked up at me. Just this raw feeling. I feel angry, but it's different. I looked over at Natsuki. She shrugged. Like, angry, or like... She shook her head, silently telling us that wasn't what she was going through. Like, the kind of angry Natsuki has when she gets mad over losing. Natsuki's face turned a bright shade of red. Hey now, don't use me for your comparisons. Sayori giggled lightly as Natsuki's lips scrunched together. I'm sorry, She hung her head slightly, not meeting mine and Natsuki's gaze. I just don't know how to describe it. It's just weird. Like, maybe I understand what she's going through. Like, she's angry, but like, she's kind of fake angry. Like, maybe her anger feels scripted to her, like it's still all part of, you know, code and script and stuff. I think that's just my prediction. And also, by the way, I was wrong. Nothing really much changed in that scenario other than the fact that some of the words were different. So yay, my hunch was extremely wrong. But not to say that something's not about to happen, like, to be completely honest. Natsuki shrugged. I have no doubt that something is definitely gonna happen. It just wasn't right then and there. I get it. Let's just play some games and I'll show you my anger. She came over to the couch. I scooched out of the way to the best of my ability. Sayori restricted my movement. She shook her head when I tried to separate from her to accommodate for our pink-haired friend. Guess she still needs time to recuperate. I just spit everywhere, I'm sorry. Hey, it's Yuri again. What's up, bitch? Huh? I pulled out one of my fancier knives. Wow, we're talking about knives now. The MC watching my moves as I gently unsheathed the blade. I don't know, I've never heard that word. Whoa, that's not just your normal type of knife, is it? I laughed a little. Well, you're gonna think I'm weird for this. I looked at the blade, a slight burning sensation creeping on my arm. Just do it. Just stab him. Oh, what weird for that? Weird for what? I stared at the blade, doing my best to set aside the burning. Well, I'm really the knives. In fact, I collect them. I continued to stare at it, the burning sensation in my arm slowly increasing its intensity. But is the oil starting to get to me? I haven't had the urge to do this since... I looked at him, my concentration broken. Are you laughing at me? He shook his head. No, I'm laughing at how nervous you are about this stuff. I think it's really cool. Didn't Yuri have like one of those moments a while back of like Act 2 Yuri? I wonder if that's gonna come into play in this again. If that's even what if I'm remembering correctly anyway. He sounded almost sarcastic, although he was staring at my knife. Really? Would you like to hold it? In your gut? I called it! I freaking called it! Yeah, sure. I held it out for him. He then took it from me and examined it. Wow, it's well taken care of, too. He then proceeded to do something incredibly stupid. That poor fool. Why did you just listen to me, Devin? Why did you go through the right door? I shook myself clear of this alien thought. Where did that come from? Ow! He poked the tip of the blade. I don't know what the fuck Yuri was just talking about. I completely haven't. That just went right over me. I apologize. He poked the tip of the blade, and as expected, his finger began to bleed. Nevertheless, I feigned shock and concern for him. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have said it was sharp, like a fucking knife. Or maybe you should have used common sense. It's all right. He looks at his finger. My next move playing in my head. I bit my own lip, not wanting to pressure myself. Whether it be from sheer will or the intoxicating oil, something drove me forward to latch onto his finger. Uh-huh. I licked the wound gently, trying not to puke as I did so. How disgusting. Hey! He pulled his hand back, looking a bit terrified. I'm so sorry, I don't know what came over me. I really don't. I looked away from him, not trying to face him. It's alright, he leaned near me, grabbing my hand. Hey, what are you... He suddenly licked my finger, my head rushing with emotions ranging from wanting to scream to wanting to slap him. Now we're even. I held my hand close, wiping my finger off. Right, shouldn't you go get that bandaged up, though? The model looked at his finger and shrugged. It isn't bleeding anymore, so it isn't a big deal. I sighed, having hoped for a moment of silence. I see. I held up the ribbon, beginning the process of cutting through it all for our first batch of decorations. There we are. After a little bit of time, we finished our work. I sighed happily. They all look great, Yuri. He said it cheerfully as I smiled, pulling out the next major project. This is for a banner I'd like to create. I brought out 2 plastic cups, holding them out to him. Could you go fill these up? We're going to use watercolor paint. Don't put too much water in. He nodded as he got up and exited the room. The instant he was out of sight, I sat back and looked down at my arm, rolling up my sleeve to examine. Oh, God. I felt up and down my arm. My scars were burning up and under the toxic smell of the jasmine. I didn't think I would be this desperate ever. I gently gripped my arm. I hoped to distill some of the heat before hearing the sound of his footsteps quickly approach. I hurriedly rolled my sleeve down as he entered. Ah, you're back. He sat down across from me. Yeah, you okay? Your face is a little red. Is it hot in here for you? I smiled, not wanting to make it worse. I'm perfectly fine. Let's continue. It really is hot. It has been for a while. So I'm gonna mix these paint colors together. For the banner, I've decided that we should create a gradient, like a translation from sunrise to sunset. He nodded. He seemed to be okay with that idea as I went through the process of mixing the paint. Eventually, the two of us went on opposite ends of the banner. I started off by painting a mixture of dots across the banner to outline where things should start and end. There was silence between us for an extended while, merely the occasional bit of chatter picking up. I had nearly forgotten about the next part. Bonk. Ow! I reeled back, holding a hand into my head. Oh god, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He sounded concerned. Oh, and I got paint on your face, huh? And I'll be right back. He stood up and exited the room. I gently nurtured my head. You should watch where he's going. Here. He came back into the room and kneeled down near me, placing a warm rag on my face. I instinctively pulled a hand on top of his. Is something wrong? I felt my embarrassment levels go through the roof. No, it's just warm is all. That feels wrong. He gently pats my face and neck, getting the paint off. I struggled with myself internally before finally grabbing his hand and holding it still. Huh? Is something wrong? I shook my head. No, just stay like this for a minute, okay? He seemed stunned, but he obliged, looking at me. Jasmine! I smiled a little, my heart feeling a little less stuck on itself as I looked at him. Jasmine! I could feel myself getting lost in his wonderful yellow, Jasmine! I also shook my head as I pulled away, both from the rag and those thoughts. Sorry, I don't know what came over me. I looked over at the Jasmine diffuser, my breath feeling heavier. That shouldn't have happened. It's, alright? He sat down across from me, the two of us picking up our brushes and continuing our work. That was intoxicating. I need to get out of here before that stuff messes with my head. And it's Monica's turn again. Dang it! Natsuki huffed as she sulked in her spot on the couch, Sayori having literally beaten her at her own game. Well, it looks like we have a new champion. I said it while laughing, a bit of brevity forced in my voice. She just got lucky. I swear I'm gonna beat you this time. Natsuki sounded determined as the two of them had a rematch. Jesus, just a game. I said it softly, Natsuki huffing again. Yeah? So are we. We're just a game. I looked at her. Seriously? Sheesh. You really do hate it when you lose. She blushed a little as she kept playing, ignoring me. I wonder how Yuri's doing anyways. You'll never believe it. I stood up and crossed in front of the protesting Natsuki. Sayori laughed at Natsuki's protest as I continued to play. I walked over to the kitchen window and looked outside. I could see Yuri in the upstairs room. She appeared to be packing her things. Oh, I guess it's go time then. I turned and went towards the other two, tapping on Sayori's head. Huh? Yeah? Natsuki looked up at me, her eyes shining with determination. She took this chance to knock Sayori's character out of the fight. Yeah! She sounded incredibly smug. It's time. I said it softly, Natsuki quieting down immediately afterwards. Oh, I should probably shut up then. Sayori laughed. No, it's alright. It's good that you're being yourself. Natsuki grinned as Sayori stood up, stretching her back out a little. All I gotta do is go out there and wait, right? Oh, that's right. Sayori's not done yet. I shook my head. Wait, hug, talk. She seemed a little less than excited as I said that, her demeanor shifting. I really don't want to. I smiled sadly, but you have to. This is it. Once this is over, you're free. We're all free. She looked at me. Not until tomorrow. I opened my mouth to object, but smiled instead. You're right. Tomorrow. But after today, you don't need to hide anymore. She smiled at that. She seemed a little more happy with that outcome. Good luck, Sayori. You got this. Natsuki said it cheerfully, Sayori smiling at her as she exited her house, walking down the sidewalk. Come on, Natsuki, let's see how she does. Natsuki got up and the two of us made our way over to the window to watch everything unfold out in the street. I hope she can handle this after everything that's happened. Natsuki spoke quietly. I couldn't help but agree. Good luck, Sayori, you got this. Natsuki said it to me happily. I smiled at her as I went outside. Yuri and the MC were just exiting his house as well. Time this right. I slowly walked towards the entrance of his house, my sour feeling coming back in full force. About today, it's fine that we didn't have that much time as we wanted, because we can do this again, whenever you want. You can come over, or we can go out somewhere. Oh, I forgot you don't like going out much. I looked at Yuri's face. Her nervousness was obvious, and she looked a little funny. Is she enjoying this? Then I noticed her fidget, her hand going up to her arm. Normally she only does that when she's in pain, or... I swallowed my spit. Yuri was definitely not okay with this. She was rubbing her arm hard. Is she bleeding? I took a more abrupt step. Yuri looked at me. The male character model had partially shifted closer to her, my interruption stopping him. Sayori! She looked at him as she pulled away. He looked at me with partially annoyed eyes. Hey! I smiled bashfully, his character getting away from her. Sayori, this isn't... I laughed a little. I was just dropping by to say hi. Yuri looked thankful as she got away from him. I'm so sorry, I have to go. It was nice seeing you, Sayori. She rushed by me, going down the street and turning off to a side road, her sleeve becoming a darker red. I hope she's okay. She's probably like running to the hospital right now. Sayori, I looked at him. He seemed to be embarrassed, but also a little angry. It's okay, Devin. I just wanted to come by. My imagination was being really mean to me was all. He looked at me confused. What? But I thought you said you weren't going to come by at all. So you could make out with so you can make out with Yuri? I just wanted to see it for myself was all. See what? What are you even talking about? I clenched my fist. First, you never come by, even if that isn't real. Then you treat me like I'm nothing at the club I invite you to. You don't even bother to do anything nice for any of us. I looked up at him. See you getting along with Yuri. It makes me happy to see you make so many new friends. You hurt everyone. You hurt Yuri. You hurt Natsuki. You hurt Monica. Tears started to stream down my face, my thoughts taking over my head. Why does it feel like my heart is tearing itself apart? I nearly screamed at the last words, my brain feeling like mush. Sayori, I looked at him. Why does this pain keep on growing? Why does it keep confusing me so much? I could barely see at this point, everything hitting my head all at once. This would be so much easier if you... I caught myself, sniffling as I shook. Sayori, are you even listening to yourself? He came over to me, his voice sounded caring again. I should just... He puts his hand on my shoulder, forcing me to look at him. Sayori, what I said before is true. I'm not going to let this continue. Caring about you isn't the burden your mind is making it out to be. It's something that makes me happy. It's something that I wouldn't trade for anything else. So even if it takes an entire lifetime. I couldn't bear to look at him. I turned my face, my tears still coming down. He's not real. I did not mean to press that. I'm going to be by your side until you don't feel any more pain. I clenched my teeth as he got quiet. Sayori? I looked at him, my anger flaring up. I could barely manage to hold it back. I don't want to hurt anymore. I said each word carefully, my tears beginning to dry up. He isn't real. Sayori. He slid his hand down my arm, grasping my hand. I still stared at him. I don't want you to hurt anymore. I didn't react, my tears drying up finally. Do you remember how I said I always know what's best for you? Do you still believe me? I nodded against my will to not agree with him, wanting to run away more than ever. Even if you don't understand all your own feelings, I know what you need the most right now. They're real. He's not real. He's not real. Don't do it, Sayori! And I'm gonna give it to you right now. He sighed as he looked down at the ground, the world feeling frozen in time. I glanced over at my house, taking notice of someone standing by the window. I couldn't tell who, but they seemed entranced. You'll always be my dearest friend, Sayori. Oh my god! He fucking turned her down! Oh my god! I looked back at him as he looked up at me, a small smile on his face. What you need most is for things to be like they've always been. Monica told me the truth. She told me how much happier you seemed after I joined the club. I know you're struggling with some really difficult feelings right now. I felt a wave of anger come over me. Monica wouldn't say that, not now. This is a lie. I knew in my heart that she wouldn't honestly say that. That was then. This is now. Please, trust me, Sayori. I will help you as much as I can, okay? I nodded coldly as I pulled away from him and took a few steps back. This is what it's like to feel emotional pain, huh? I took a few more steps. Sayori? I looked up at him. Everything about this was wrong. His face, his look, the fact that he did whatever he wanted without even thinking about the consequences. He shouldn't have dated any of us, or let alone even join the club. He's a dirty... This is just my punishment. I said it softly, my last lines to him coming up. I should deserve this. I felt my heart sink. I don't need to say these. I didn't have to. I turned away from him and took another shaky step before going down on my knees. I hit the cement with my fist twice before letting out a loud yell. I stood up, my hand was bleeding a little bit. I glanced back over my shoulder to see if he even noticed. He didn't seem sure of what to do as I ran into my yard and up to my door. Sayori! He called out my name in vain as I went inside, slamming the door behind me without a second thought. And that's the end of Sayori having to do that for MC. Sayori! Sayori! Monica had rushed out of the kitchen over to the front door. Sayori was standing there with her face wet and her hand dripping blood. Holy crap! I looked over to the bathroom door. The sound of the running sink stopped as Yuri poked her head out. Sayori, is she alright? Yuri sounded worried as she stepped out. She was wearing a new sweater, but I could see what appeared to be a bandage in her arm. Why is she so sensitive? Why is she so sensitive about there? Sayori murmured as she nearly fell over, Monica catching her and going into panic mode. Yuri, Rag, Natsuki, move! She nearly yelled as she brought Sayori over, Monica lying down on the couch. Monica... Sayori sat up almost immediately, or at least attempted to. Monica stopped her. Why did you do that to your hand? That was unnecessary. Monica sounded angry, yet it was obvious she was trying to contain herself. I'm sorry, my head is just full of these mean thoughts. She said it softly as I stood there confused, unsure of what to do. Sayori... I then backed away, heading to the bathroom and grabbing some bandages before heading back. This is going to end up being an hour-long video, and I apologize for that. I don't try to make these an hour long, but, that's just how long these days are. Yuri was standing by ready to help. He's such a jerk. He used us, just like you said. Sayori trailed off as she looked up at Yuri. Are you okay? Yuri nodded. I'm fine. I scratched up my arm from anxiety. What can I do, Monica? I stepped in, interrupting them from speaking. I think we need to deal with the hand first. I took the rag, kneeled down next to Sayori, applying the rag to her hand to help clean the wound. Thank you. Sayori said it softly as we all circled her, looking at her concerned. What is going on in your head, Sayori? You need to tell us if this isn't healthy what you just did. Yuri said it softly, gripping her own arm again. This time it seemed less stress-related. I know, I just didn't want to cause any more problems for tomorrow morning. She breathed quickly. Water, please, Monica? The president nodded as she got up, heading to the kitchen. He's a real jerk. Sayori said it softly with a smile. She looked at the two of us. Well, yeah, I told you. I said it with a smile back, Sayori laughing. Yeah. I gently wrapped her hand with the bandage. That should be fine for tonight. Just keep it under wraps. I stood up, trying not to look at her wounded hand. Thanks, you two. Monica had reappeared, handing Sayori the water as she gulped it down quickly. I should be honest, I guess. I do trust you guys. She finished the water quickly before sitting up slowly, much to Monica's protests. I've been feeling off about getting rid of him all week. She trailed off. Even with how mean he was at times, I didn't think he was all bad. She looked up at us. She seemed distraught. Until today. Today, my awful feeling took over, and I saw exactly who he is. She held the glass in both of her hands, looking at her bandaged one. He's a big self-centered jerk. She looked up at us again. And I want him gone, forever. She handed the glass off to Monica, who was now smiling slightly. It was hard, wasn't it, for both of you? You nearly destroyed yourselves. Yuri looked away from Monica, trying not to make eye contact. Let's enjoy the rest of tonight, okay? Tomorrow's gonna be hell for all of us. Including MC. She looked down at Sayori. She was worried. We need time to cool down before we get into our plan. Going in unprepared will end up screwing us all. She walked away, leaving us in silence. I had to tell him I was depressed. Sayori laughed. I am depressed, but not like I was. We looked at her oddly. She didn't seem to be entirely herself. I'm happier now. I have real friends. People who care. She looked at us. Thank you for being around, guys. Even if it doesn't cure my depression, it's helping me in so many ways. I couldn't help but smile. In spite of everything that happened today, Sayori was still trying to lighten the mood. I should be thanking you, Sayori. Yuri looked over her arm. You're the one who always helps everyone out. You deserve a break from feeling bad. Sayori smiled in response. Yeah, I guess I do deserve a little break. Hey, this is kind of going back to what was happening earlier. She looked at me, a small smug smile on her face. Like, a punchy kind of break? I laughed. I don't think you'll be punching anyone anytime soon, Sayori. She shrugged as Monica came back over, Sayori looking at her. I think we should be thanking you the most, though. Monica froze. She seemed confused. What for? I haven't done anything today. Sayori stood up, hugging her tightly, Monica's face turning red. Sayori just tightened the hug, Monica smiling. Alright, I see. She hugged her back. The two of them seemed happy. After tomorrow, we can do whatever we want, make whatever we want. Monica said it softly as Sayori pulled away. Best of all, we get to do it together. Monica said the last bit quietly, looking at each of us. I hope that's alright. We all nodded in agreement. The girl who started this whole process seemed relieved. You deserve it too, Monica. Never forget that. Sayori smiled happily as she went back to her spot on the couch. There's just one big problem, though. What's that? Monica looked at her concerned. What's for dinner? I started to speak but stopped. Seriously? Ugh, you suck. There was a laugh as I walked away. Yuri followed close behind me. What is for dinner, Miss Wondercook? Yuri said her comment slyly. I glanced at her. Spaghetti, drenched with sauce. I don't stop mixing it together until every bit is slathered in the sweet stuff. Yuri giggled a little louder than normal. I couldn't help but crack a smile. Man, you really love that spaghetti stuff, huh? She nodded as I went over to the fridge, pulling out some basic ingredients. What is on the menu for real, though? I looked at her. It'll be a surprise type of thing, I guess. She seemed to go into thought. In other words, you don't know? I groaned audibly. No, you baka, it's gonna be... Let me show you. I went over the pantry pulling out potatoes. Basically, what you do is you take all the stuff from the middle of the potatoes out. Then you mix it in with a bunch of other stuff and then put it back in. She seemed confused. Twice baked pretty much. It's a funny recipe, but it does the job if you want more taste. She still seems confused. Does this not make any sense? She looked at me and shook her head. It's not that. I'm trying to think of a clever way to make a dirty joke. I stopped and looked at her. Okay, Yuri, you've been acting funny since you got home. What's going on? She looked away from me embarrassed. It's the oil, the jasmine stuff that has an effect on your emotions. I remembered her telling me about some special oil stuff earlier. That's the stuff, huh? You really had to use it too. She nodded as I started to get everything ready. It wasn't a fun experience. I looked at her as she started to help according to my directions, everything starting to move faster. Did he try to do anything to you in there? She nodded, my anger coming up. Like what? She sighed softly. Kiss me, I guess. The oil, I think, pushed him over, but Monica said he scripted too, so... I looked at her as she said that, her voice trailing off. So he's supposed to try and do stuff with you? She nodded as I looked back at my cooking supplies. Most of it placed into the recently acquired mixing bowl. That kind of freaks me out. I wonder what he would have done to me. She looked at me, her concern obvious. I'm sure it would have been okay. You're tough. I stopped what I was doing, looking at her. I'm not tough, Yuri, you know that. I would have lost it if he did anything to me. I shrunk a little, looking away from me. Sorry, I'm just trying to help you out so you don't have to worry too much. I let the words replay in my head. Sure thing, Sayori. She looked at me as I said that, but her face contorted into thought. I did just sound like her, didn't I? Really though, don't worry, I can handle this. I got everything to start mixing, and your coping method is to healthily scratch your arm open? I looked at her sleeve, her hand going up to cover it. I don't really... I smiled at her as she tried to find an excuse. It's okay, Yuri, I understand. You don't know many methods. I'll help you out. We can find you a new hobby. I stopped the mixer. You haven't tried many games. Maybe we can find one you're more suited for. She seemed to like that idea, a small smile appearing on her face. Yes, ones with lots of story. I need that. I nodded as I applied the mixture to the emptied husks of potatoes. I threw them into the oven on their pan. Then we can try some after tomorrow, okay? She nodded again as the two of us exited the kitchen. A timer ticking softly behind us, ticking away our precious time. And now it's MC? Silence, I vowed. Hell beeth my end. Even on this darkest of days, we remain quiet. Silence, I vowed. It's the day of the festival! And that's where we're leaving it! Hey! We've made it to the festival! And this is actually, for the, one of the first, real times besides poem sharing, we're finally in our own shoes that we're supposed to be in. For the main game. We're finally in MC's shoes. Damn, wow, okay, so, that was a very interesting day, and then a lot of shit went down. But, tomorrow is gonna be the end of the festival. So... Or not tomorrow, but today, because it's the festival today. So, I do want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, smash that like button. If you're new, I love it at the channel, guys. We got a Discord, can check me out on the side. It's going to be a fun time for all. Hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I did make it. I'll see you guys in my next one. Goodbye!